life does not turn out the way we plan. We enter into a relationship, we have kids, but then life happens. When two people decide to separate, bana ke bona ba salang ba lemala gagolo. And it becomes worse when one of the partners decides to get married again. The question today is, how do we deal with such issues and how do we ensure gore bana ga ba lebale? Mo gaetso ke tse itshune go dumedisa leina la me ke Sheila B, and welcome to Agana. Fa o sena go latlhela bofofo ke go amogele mogaetso o ntse le nna Sheila B, ke na le baeng jaaka tlwae gate le gae le sa etelweng ba loa ba tla itse mo rona re ba Kriste mo gae re ira dithoku tizenzeke. Ke na le baeme, ke na le Ous Lebo, ke na le Ous Ayanda le Ous Papedi. Hello ladies.
Hi.
Le kae?
Thank you.
Well, teng ha le smile kana na ke bone le direng lona ka re tlo fisha mo.
No ring.
No ring, ne? Ous Papedi, let me start with you. We're talking about children outside of marriage or out of, okay, maybe I don't want to call it extramarital affairs because sometimes baba teng and the reason was because re kgaohane and then we moved and but no hona le bana in the previous one. Tell us your story.
I have a child,
Yes.
a 1-year-old boy. Me and his father separated shortly after he was born, so like a month later.
Okay.
So the thing is that we were planning to get married.
Yes.
So families had nabahlakani, you know, then only to realize that we are not ready for this. Like man, we just realized no man, if we rush into marriage, we're not gonna make good parents really together, but rather we separate and try to co-parent and raise our son as best as we can.
Out of you not being together, has any of you moved on?
He moved on.
Okay.
Yeah, he moved on, but me, I'm still.
And there's no crime in that.
No, there isn't.
Yeah, there's no crime in
I
that.
think most of the time, I think last year, the whole time, I was focusing on raising Wanaka as best as I can,
Okay.
Being there as a parent. So I haven't really tried to maneuver relationships as yet.
Oslebza, Oshap. Hey, thank you for visiting again. It's about a topic and bona, true to my words, wakokota. What is your take on the topic like this? And especially because some of these topics you touch on TikTok. Yes.
I have spoken about this on my page, asking what happens to these kids who are born out of extramarital affairs, because it seemed as though bana were not really a priority, especially in cases where, the one partner has moved on or uchidile and had, an affair. So what I found to be a little bit of a concern was that even as the wives forgive the husband, they were not willing to accept the child because the child served as a reminder of an affair that happened. But now, Ngwana ends up not having a place of belonging or, a sense of belonging because they are seen as an enemy to an already existing structure. So I think in a lot of cases, it's easy for us to also attach our love to our children. But I've seen once relationships end or, partners decide to move on, there tends to be divorce that also happens. It's almost as if the love was attached to the mother. Therefore, once the partner and the mother separate, they also separate from the child. And that's why we're finding a lot of children also leaning to maybe dating bontate babaholo because they're yearning for lerato la batswadi, or, little boys dating older women because they're also yearning for that love ya motswadi.
Sisanda, let me rope you in here because you work a lot with children.
Yeah.
And I would love to believe that more often you see the displacement somehow in how a child interacts with other people. And maybe when you dig deeper, you realize that such issues actually may be very prevalent in the child's upbringing.
Yeah.
How do you cope with such?
Sure, it's so sad, Ursula, because if you think about it, you know, abandonment is actually classified as abuse, number one.
Okay.
It's classified as a trauma on the child, and it leads to something that we call ACEs, which is basically adverse childhood adversity, which in the long term will even affect your physical health.
Sure.
So now, if you consider South Africa and the fact that we have 70% of our children being raised in single household, it's ridiculous because remember, the role of a mom and a dad is mom shows son the type of woman that they will love because you're the role model of, you know, whatever you as a mom are displaying, you become that role model. Dad shows the daughter, this is the kind of man you should be attracted to. So if you think about these 70% of children out there, what is their outlook in terms of who is the type of lovers that they will have? And that's why we talk about these things of daddy issues. It's such a long, serious trauma that I don't think within our culture we pay enough attention to.
In your case, Papidi, how would you then protect your child? Because at some point you'll need to move on. You'll meet your knight in shining armor, and what then happens? How do you protect your child? And also take into consideration, should you then get married, ke ngwana wa ko gae or ke ngwana wa gago?
You know, I've been thinking about it, and I think that's just one of the reasons why I have been withdrawing myself from, you know, entering into relationships. Yeah, it's because kitaba yona the thing of meeting uncles, banbani today, and then tomorrow it's uncle whoever. And I am aware that, you know, my son is getting older and he might want to have a father figure in his life because I come from a home of, you know, females, and also my parents are separated. So there's no father figure at home at all. So it's just women.
But you know, there is a saying that says forewarned, forearmed, meaning that such discussions, they literally empower you or even our sisters out there in terms of what it is that they need to prepare for. Because rona re godile kuna le saying bathi we khapa le namane, meaning ukuthi xa uzoyichata uyichata with the cuff. You can't take it on its own. But when we come back from the short break, I also want us to discuss issues of, will then you allow your child to visit the father, meet the new spouse, interact with the new kids, and that means you have to allow them as well to come into your space to visit your child in their natural habitat. Mogaetso nte re papatsong re tla le bona fa re bo. A saying when two elephants fight, the grass is the one that gets hurt the most. When these two people that are adults that brought this wonderful child into the world, they have a tiff. It is the child that is compromised. Now, Oslebo, let's come back to this thing. And parents used to understand that. And half the time, you'll find a man that says, or a woman that would say, if then you might as well utlogele. And again, a man uses that as a yardstick to test what type of a woman are you if you are going to leave your child at home when you are going to have a lush life outside with me.
What I've noticed regarding this one is that basadi rona bomme re sala le bana, bontate leave us with children to start a new life elsewhere. So how kopana le motho has no choice but ho nka le ngwana because ngwana is attached to you. So once we start dating, I think we usually leave our kids out of the system of dating because re batla bona if we have things in in common, whether we're compatible. But hangata, once re bona relationship ya progress and we now have to accommodate the child, those questions now dia hlahela re ngwana wa sala or ke gapa le namane, where initially this is the package, and ke nahana hore in today's times, we need to approach dating in that way where we don't have to worry about whether ke na le ngwana, therefore I can't date, but motho o sile ngwana hae and is able to start a new family elsewhere. So I think tshwantse re ye ko, a place where we're able to say, if as a man you are approaching a single mother, how are you going to accommodate the single mother with her child in your life?
Okay. Now, Sisayanda, we have this tendency ukuthi xa sikhula, just because uyazi ukuba lo mntwana lona uvelele ekhaya, okanye maybe abazali bahlukana, and then umama or utata moved on, so mntana sekane-term, iveza ndlebe. Do you think also nathi as a society, as parents, as families, we play a role in stigmatization, especially zabantwana who are raised in single parents or who probably come from a previous relationship, and they're innocent.
Yeah. I'm a huge critic of how, unfortunately, culture yet has also played this narrative, because I will be umakazi and I know my brother has children, but what contribution do I make to make sure Balomdana is part of the family situations, So we are just as guilty as our sister, as umakazi, the whole family. In fact, if we, as a part of a family, extended family, can be more proactive to try to say, "Hayibo bhuti, umntana, lo mntana unaye, becomes a holiday, sibe ngodade bawo who are that proactive." We can actually assist in changing that narrative. And then in terms of me as a single mom raising my 2 kids, I need to go the extra mile in trying to build relationships with stepmother, with udedi ne family yake, and try not to be the difficult one. You look at these white families overseas, they really try, where it's like, who's stepmother, no mother, no, you don't get the whole family's here. But it takes me being responsible in creating a relationship as trustworthy. So that as a stepmother, born, worry about where what. But also, as I said, as a families, we need to go the extra mile in making sure we reach to abantwana betu. Abandonment is such a traumatic issue. It says, number one, to me as a child, utata kanifuni, ngenze ntoni kwenza utata kanifuni. And yalibala as umntana, but this has nothing to do with me. It has to do with these 2 people who have gotten into fights.
Okay.
You can literally end up going to therapy your whole life just to deal with that abandonment. And if we talk about what it then does to you as a person, you become people pleaser. Depression, mental issues, they're like sky high. Kwabantu abanozo risk, including going all the way to at risk of different types of addictions.
Because obviously they would say, Guti, I was never accepted.
I was never accepted.
Osipapedi, would you be open to taking the kids, your ex-partner, to come visit you because they've got a sister?
I wouldn't have a problem with it because I come from a family where we are a blended family.
Yes.
So my mom and dad, when they met, they had, children.
Yes.
My mom had my sister and my dad had my other sister. Yeah. So my other sister from my dad, he would come and visit. And my sister, my mom's child, she stayed with us. And they ended up having a relationship together. They would go on holidays together. They would, they have their own relationship outside of, the fact that they just have siblings.
Yeah.
They have step-siblings, actually.
Yes.
They actually have a relationship outside of me. So now, personally, right now, yes. I wouldn't allow my child to go to his father's, to go to his father's place.
Okay.
I'm uncomfortable with it.
But what is the uncomfortable part? Because I'm just thinking and not because I'm putting a spotlight. I'm just thinking probably there's someone at home who's watching and thinking, yo, I'm sharing the same sentiments with Papidi. I would never.
I think it comes from, it would depend on how the separation was.
Okay.
If there was no peace, and there's still a little bit of, a little bit of turmoil, then I can't just give my child to somebody that I know that themselves, they don't have peace within themselves about me or about my family or whatsoever. Okay. So I think right now it comes from that perspective. But as soon as, there's peace, I think I might. And only because I've seen it happening around me at home as well. And so I think I might, but for now, I no.
For now, Ospapedi will just hold her peace.
I'll just...
And Lynn, not just so that there is mutual peace with me and you at home, let me give you an opportunity to go warm that plate of food, and we will see you after this short break. Are we raising a generation that has a cultural identity crisis? Are we at fault for our kids growing up in silos instead of family units, be it whether the surname is different? Has the term stepsister, foster sister really broken families and to an extent that we never see ourselves as whole people within a family unit? Sisayanda, we always say just because uzalwe ngutata is stepbrother, just because uzalwe ngumama is stepsister. But what does that mean to a child?
So I think the problem there would be, as a family, what values and beliefs do you have? Because culturally, our conduct is step.
Yes.
Even no cousin, izinto zasilungu.
Yes.
Umuntu wasekhaya
Yes.
or cousin, or umuntu wasekhaya, and it went all the way in terms of how our grandparents relate to each other. So we need to really conscientize ourselves to move away from that, so that umntana ozayo, whatever the situation azangayo, afilishe as part of the family. Yes, there are situations where, the relationship will break. Iyapuka, even if nizi siblings, same mother, same father, let's be honest.
Yeah, true.
Okay? But you want to make sure about wena as a parent, and wena as a parent who is getting into a relationship with someone who has a child outside, you need to prepare yourself mentally for what it means. That's why I'm saying then you need to go that extra mile. Build a relationship with the other party, so that we co-parenting, so that umntana angathi xa ifika apha efamilini nguye ongenazihlangu. It's so embarrassing lanto. And for me, one day, the reason family is important to me is that one day I understand, but between the four of us as siblings, kuzakwenzeka into kum, abantwana bam need to raise somebody. Who is the person who I should trust the most? But how do I build that relationship? So when as umzali ke ngoku, it's your responsibility to build a culture where you're saying, akho step mnto up. Unfortunately, if there's a conflict situation, just like she mentioned, then it's going to be a problem. So that means ndim ke ngoku kufuneka reach out to you as the co-parent.
But now here's the thing, Oslebo. Now, especially not necessarily taking Ospapedi's issue, but someone at home who's like thinking, I share Ospapedi's sentiments. Because the way we broke up together, it was not an amicable breakup, or maybe became denial number one or whatever. For me, as I'm sitting here, is what does that have to do with the child? But at the same time, I do not want to sound insensitive to the fact that there could have been real, valid reasons why you had to leave that relationship. But the thing is, for the best interest of the heart, or of the child, can't we have at least some workable solution?
I think in most cases when partners separate, and hence the saying, there's a thin line between love and hate. When you love, you love. And when that love gets taken away from you, you hate. But now we have a child that we need to, raise together. So I think now in this instance, I would advise for couples to have a check-in session after the fact, after the breakup, to say, you know what, but we still need to have an after-break date to talk about what went wrong and how we can move forward in peace. And, it does not necessarily have to be love, but how can we, co-parent peacefully together? And I think a lot of relationships, or, situations where couples have separated, they missed an opportunity to have an after after yes, a debriefing session to say, okay, but this has happened. We still need to take into account whether there's a person who actually has both our bloods running through their veins. So how do we accommodate this person so that we can also have peace? So I think as ladies as well, men as well, we need to have a debriefing session to understand how a relationship is fedile, but because let's accommodate our partners, but sometimes it's not easy because of and that could also prevent you.
And I like what you just said, because those people because okay, ngwana ka se ka mane.
Yes.
Mara wa ka mane aka khona o ratle ka monana gore a tlo khona o ra bonde le ngwana ha bonana. Are you fine with that?
Yes, because I've seen it with my mom. She has done that, She has welcomed Banaba from her previous relationship to come and bond with my older sister. And she has allowed my half sister to also come at home to bond with us. So yes, I would definitely be comfortable with doing that because I've seen my mom do it.
Because we are out of time, what is one lesson that we are learning out of this thing?
I'd like to take that on. I think, first of all, a lot of us are going around carrying trauma that we don't even recognize. And then then it becomes a huge trigger and. And what Auslev said, I love it. Let's not only have debriefing, must about what happens when 1, 2, 3 happens. Because one thing I'm seeing is that we get into relationships and we don't share the same values in terms of what family is, in terms of the idea of how far we want to go with our children and involvement, And if I could say anything to anyone who's listening, you have a partner right now, so one red flags already, but no, my friend, run. Because kunzima kwa single parenting. I am a single parent to 2 children. This is the reason why I got into the parenting space in terms of just trying to heal myself as well. But listen, that's the financial aspects. There's mental, there's emotional. So you don't want to do that to yourself. So when you're looking for a partner, make sure we are research. Uba unomntana already akamsupport, run sisi run.
Because now ngeke akusize.
Uzofana.
I think back in the day, we used to say it takes a village to raise a child. I mean, Rona growing up, if my mother was not home, I'd go next door, mewa next door, mewa next door, mewa. So it was easier for us to grow in environments where we felt we belonged. But in the times that we're living in now, everyone is keeping to their families. That's why we feel lonely. That's why we have no place to call home because, we're separated from each other. So my parting shot is, we can make it work.
If we try, we can make it work. Oslebo Ori, it takes a village to raise a child. Mokhaitsu, let us not lose sight of who we are and how we were raised, and the fact that this thing step. We are all brothers, we are sisters, and we are all raised with love. Mokhaitsu, sala sentle modimo ke yona.